Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about Proverbs. We're going to be going over Proverbs. First and foremost, let's define the word proverb, scripturally speaking. Proverb in the scriptures is Mashal, number 4912. And it means superiority in mental action. Superiority in a mental action, a pithy maxim. Hence, proverbs are usually concise and forceful, expressive truths, principles, or rules of conduct. Another aspect of Mashal is to rule, and thus proverbs are given to the wise that they might rule or govern over their lives. You know, the proverbs were meant to be taken and to be set up over one's lives to help guide them and govern their lives, to give them some rules and to go by, you know, and to get some deeper understanding of some principles or truths. And so it is with the proverbs entailed within Scripture. Well, today we're going to be dealing with Proverbs chapter 1. Now, chapters 1 through 9 of Proverbs essentially speak to the babes of the faith. They work to give the youth knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, as well as a type of structure for their life. You know, so keep this in mind as we go through chapter 1. Proverbs 1:1 says, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of Dawood, or David, king of Israel. Now, Solomon's name means peaceful. David, or names means beloved. Israel, he who wrestles with good and evil and prevails by holding on to Elohim. So the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, speaks to the Proverbs of the peaceful, the son of the beloved king of Israel. And we know who the current king of Israel is. That's beloved of Elohim, even our Messiah, Yahushua. Amen. You know, and these are Proverbs for those who follow his peaceful way. Verse 2 says, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. Verse 3, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. Okay? Now, in verse 3, this word justice is that. You know, it's number 6664, meaning it's the right or the righteous. So it's speaking of, you know, these proverbs is so that one could know wisdom and instruction, so that they can perceive the words of understanding, you know, and that they might receive the instruction of wisdom and righteousness and judgment and equity. And this word equity actually speaks to impartiality. You know, Proverbs 1:4 says to give also, there to teach you to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. So to the simple, and we're going to define simple in a minute, but to the simple is to give subtlety, you know, and that is, subtlety is, in the Hebrew, is orma, number 6195, and it means discretion. It comes from orim, number 6193, meaning a stratagem or a plan. So here it is, we see that these proverbs are to help the simple, you know, to formulate a plan or a purpose for their lives, to give them some discretion, you know, in their lives. So hereby we learn the objectives of Solomon's Proverbs 1 through 9, which spiritually speaking are to the peaceful sons of his beloved king, that is, of Israel, i.e. Yahushua, for the purposes of teaching them the wisdom and instruction that they might perceive words of understanding, righteousness, and judgment, and that they might be able to formulate a stratagem for life, a plan or purpose for life, that they might have some discretion in life, you know, so that they won't be too simple. Okay, verses 5 and 6 actually says, a wise man will hear and will increase learning. And a man of understanding shall attain unto the wise counsels. To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. So he's telling us right here that, the youth is hereby encouraged that if they're to become wise, they are to hear and obey, because this word here is Shema, number 85 in the Hebrew, and it means to not only to hear but to obey, and also even to understand. And so here it is, Solomon is encouraging the youth that if they're to become wise, they are to hear and obey these proverbs. And if there exists some proverbs that they don't understand, that they should seek wise counsel, that they might be fully understood, so that they can fully understand the words of the wise as well as their hidden meanings. So he also is implying that within many of these proverbs are some hidden meanings. It's not all just on the surface. There's some dark sayings, to them, that there's some inner or deeper meanings, than what's perceived on the surface. Okay, can I have my first reader read Proverbs 1, 7 through 9.
The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck.
Hallelujah. Okay, so he's telling us that if there's some of these proverbs that you don't understand, that you're to seek wise counsel. But how do you know if the counsel that you're seeking is wise? And this is verse 7 actually answers that for us. It says the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge. So first and foremost, if your source does not fear Yahuwah, then they're not a good counselor. Because the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge. There's also another place in the Proverbs which tells us the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. Yes. So here it is. If we're going to someone and we're trying to understand these proverbs and trying to understand their dark sayings, and we're looking for wise counsel, if the counsel that we're going to do not fear Yahuwah, then they're not the wise counselors that we should be seeking, to understand, because they're going to tell you from a worldly perspective, of what they understand, but we need someone that fear Yahuwah. At least we know if they fear Yahuwah, they at least have the beginning of knowledge and the beginning of wisdom. Amen? So, which is a lot more than what the youth has when they're starting out. So they might be able to shed some light on some things. He goes on to say, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the Torah of thy mother. Now, you can take this, in the physical, as pertaining to your natural father and mother. But spiritually, it's speaking to the Father of all. It's speaking to the Heavenly Father. And it's speaking to even the Heavenly Mother, if you would. It says, hear the instruction of thy father. This word instruction is actually Musar, number 4148, meaning chastisement. It comes from Yasar, number 3256, meaning to chastise, literally with blows or figuratively with words, hence to instruct. See, and this is the way that Yah instructs us oftentimes. He instructs us as the shepherd used to instruct the sheep with a goad. And he would take that goad, and when the sheep got out, okay. Yeah, so we want to make sure that we're asking someone who fears Yah, to make certain that, they have an understanding, that they have knowledge, that they have true wisdom. And like I was saying, this father is being spoken of as the Heavenly Father, and the mother likewise. And here it is, we see that the instruction speaks to chastisement. It's usually the father who hands out the chastisement, in a full family, anyhow. And so, it's speaking of the instructions of the father. That's actually what speaks to the chastisement. We was talking about how the shepherds actually instruct the sheep, by goading them, and so it is. That's one way to teach. That's one way to instruct. That's one way to get your point across. Amen. You know, and it speaks of the Torah of thy mother. You know, and we know the Torah is the scriptures, divine law of Elohim. So, this is our mother and our father, you know, and one way that our Heavenly Father instructs us is when we do something bad happens. And, you know, and that is to instruct us, and we need to understand that. You know, that's one way that that He instructs us, that He speaks to us, that He deals with us, is by chastising us. You know, and sometimes we really need to get that through our head, because when something happens, we point the finger and allude it to being from everything but Him. You know, but we have an example of how one that does hear and obey the instruction of their father and chose not to forsake the Torah, you know, how truly they became an ornament of grace unto their head and chains about their neck. And this is our example in Scripture is actually Abraham. Come on, next reader, read Genesis 22:10 through 18.
And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of Yahuwah called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest Elohim, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Yahuwah Jireh, as it is said to this day, in the mount of Yahuwah it shall be seen. And the angel of Yahuwah called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, said Yahuwah, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sun which is upon the sea shore. And thy seed shall possess the gates of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nation of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice.
Okay, so we see Abraham being obedient to his Heavenly Father, and truly, you know, he did receive a type of ornament upon his head, you know, and a necklace around his neck that would ever be with him, you know. And you know, we read about Abraham being the father of our faith even now today, you know, and it's just an awesome testament to his obedience to his Heavenly Father, Heavenly parents, you know. So praise be to Yah, because he's no respecter of person, and if he's done it for Abraham, he'll do it for us too. You know, if we just hear and obey the instructions of our heavenly parents, they shall be an ornament of grace unto our head and chains about our neck. You know, they will be something that we can be proud of. My next reader, Proverbs 10 through 19.
My son, if sinners entice you, consent not. If they say, Come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those who go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in your lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, Walk not in the way with them, refrain your foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, who takes away the life of the owners thereof.
Okay. Now, essentially what is being taught to the youth is that they shouldn't join gangs for the purposes of greedy gain. You know, that causes the innocent people to become, the greedy gain that causes innocent people to become hurt or killed. You know, the youth should not join into these type of organizations and gangs and to get wealth. You know, where they go about hurting people and doing things, you know, they ought not to innocent people in order just to get ahead. Because the proverb is actually teaching us, you know, that they're not going to get ahead, even though it may seem like they're getting ahead, they're not. It says, let us swallow them up alive as the grave and whole as those that go down in the pit. We should find precious substance. We should fill our houses with spoil. That's their intention, you know. And then they say, let us cast in thy lot among us, all having one purse. You know, it's one of the things that the gangs of old used to do. They used to, you know, have one purse, you know. So if one of them ate, they all ate. They all had the same thing. They had all things in common, so to speak, you know. But here it is. The youth is being instructed not to walk in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. You know, for their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. You know, they're the money, the spoil, you know, the precious substance is their God. And they'll do anything and everything to get it, you know, including killing the innocent or hurting the innocent or taking advantage of the innocent, you know, and that's not right, and Yah is not going to reward that. In fact, you know, Proverbs 17 through 19 tells of their future. It says, surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. You know, they think that they're plotting and planning on other folks, but in all actuality, they're setting a trap for themselves. You know, because what you sow, you will reap. You know, so it's an awesome lesson to be learned there for the youth. You know, don't get into, you know, taking advantage of folks or trying to do ill to folks just to get ahead. You know, treat people as you want to be treated. Verses 20 through 22, my next reader, please.
Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the opening of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge.
Okay, so here it is. We have wisdom crying without, uttering her voice in the streets. It says she crieth in the chief place of concourse. Now, concourse, this word concourse is hamah in the Hebrew, number 1993. It means to make a loud sound. It means where all the commotion is, you know, where everything's happening at, you know. That's where wisdom cries the loudest, where everything's happening at, and usually the youth want to be where everything's happening at. You know, and wisdom is crying out loud in the openings of the gates, it speaks of. You know, the openings of the gates was like the court system of the day. You know, it was where they held court at. It was where, you know, all the official decisions, as well as penalties and so on and so forth took place. You know, so the equivalent of that would be like at the courthouse. You know, there's a lot of commotion going on down there, huh? You know, and that's where wisdom is crying out. You know, she's crying out down there. She's uttering her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones? Here it is, you know, found yourself in trouble again. You before the judge again. How long will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorn, and the fools hate knowledge. Well, saying how long, simple ones? What is she speaking of? What does she mean by simple ones? And simple ones, as well as simplicity, is taken from the Hebrew word pethi, number 6612, meaning silly, which actually speaks to being seducible. And it comes from the root patha, which means to be open, that is, to be roomy. And to really get the essence of this, it's speaking of someone that have no restraints. They're really roomy in their actions and in their thoughts and doings. They're really roomy. They have no restraints. They have no parameters. And so that's what it's speaking of as a simple one. You know, kind of they do what they feel. Anything goes with them. You know, the word scorners used here is lutz, number 3887. It means to make mouth fat. You know, how many youth do that? Make mouth fat stuff. You know, and the word scorning is latsong, number 3944, which means derision. So it's speaking about those who just talk about folks. You know, just deriding folks. Just, you know, talking about stuff sometimes they don't even know about. You know, but just because they don't like somebody, they just slander them. You know, but that's what it's speaking of, you know, to make mouth fat, to derision. And also the word fools is conceal. And it's number 3684, meaning to be fat. You know, and you're not going to really get the fullness of what it means to be fat just from this. So we'll see what that the scriptures define fat. You know, in Psalms 119, 69, and 70, we have, the proud have forged a lie against me, but I will keep thy precepts with my whole heart. Their heart is as fat as grease, but I delight in thy Torah. You know, so here it is, we see that the heart being fat is speaking to the proud. Also from Psalms 17, verses 9 and 10, from the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies who compass me about. They are enclosed in their own fat. With their mouth they speak proudly. So you see, Scripture is teaching us that when it comes to fat, it's concerning the proud. You know, and this is concealed. You know, to be fat, scripturally speaking, also means to be prosperous, to be rich. You know, speaks of Yeshurun, who had waxed fat and began to go against the precepts of Yah. You know, after they got all that they needed, after they got waxed fat. You know, you can even a good word to use to describe this fat from a scriptural perspective would be spoiled. You know, where you have everything that you ever think you can want. You know, people become spoiled, and they become they get to the point where they're just, you know, at a loss for. They get to a point to where they're at a loss for wanting anything, and as a result, you know, they find themselves doing some pretty crazy stuff. You know, as Yeshurun did, and as a lot of other folks. You know, so that's what it speaks to, is being fat. You know, being fat. You know, it speaks to the fool because they have no restraints. Again, almost like the simple ones. You know, they just get whatever they want and they don't put any restraints on it. You know. So here it is. Solomon is actually teaching that, you know, these simple ones, they love simplicity, and the scorners delight in their scorning, and the fools hate knowledge. You can't tell them nothing. You know, it's kind of hard to tell somebody something that has everything. Proverbs 123 says, turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. because I have called and ye refused. I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. But ye have set me at naught all my counsel and would none of my reproof. Wow. So what wisdom is teaching here is that when chastisement comes from one being simple, from one being too roomy, not having no restraints, just doing whatever they want to do, you know, or when it comes from one being scornful, you know, constantly deriding someone or something. Now, how many you keep deriding someone, they may get fed up and decide to challenge you. And sometimes that can turn out not so good in the scorner's favor. Also speaks to his teaching when chastisement comes from one being too fat. Sometimes you see stuff you want, but it's not the best thing for you. And as a result, life gives you a check. You eat too much dairy, and then next thing you know, you bent over, or something like that. Say la. or one being too scornful. We did that one. That such chastisement is actually wisdom calling out and stretching forth her hand, trying to give one counsel. Wisdom is screaming, trying to get their attention. Hey, don't do that. That would be wise. Don't do that. Stop talking about people. You won't find yourself keep getting in fights. Give some restraint. Use moderation. You can't just eat this all the time. Stop doing everything that comes to your mind. Can't you see it keep getting you in trouble? Stop it. Put some restraints on it. So this is wisdom crying out to the simple ones. But they don't. Do they listen? Some do, some don't. But wisdom has a message for all those who don't. Verses 26 through 28, wisdom says, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you. Wisdom says that she'll laugh. Have you ever gotten yourself into a bad situation or circumstance only to have someone or something add insult to injury? Here it is, you find yourself doubled over because, you've been eating too much dairy or whatever, and then somebody come and say, see, you shouldn't have been eating that. That's what you get. Or they start laughing at you, or something to that effect. That's actually wisdom laughing at you. That's actually wisdom trying to mock you and get your attention, like, hey, you should have listened to me. We have to learn to listen to wisdom. Verse 28 says, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. And if you think about that, that's so true. Because as soon as you get in trouble for something that you shouldn't have been doing, the first thing that comes to your mind is, what should I do, or what can I do? You're trying to figure out what to do about it and how to get out of the situation. You're trying to seek wisdom to get out of the mess that you done gotten yourself in. But wisdom says, yeah, even though you'll seek me early, you won't find me. She's not going to be there. She's not going to help you out because you didn't listen from the beginning. So we're to learn the lesson that wisdom is trying to get across to us. Don't turn at her reproof. She's saying, turn you at my reproof in verse 23. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. If she always give you a chance, if you see the warning, you're to take heed to the warning. If wisdom gives you a warning, here it is, you're doing something and you get a slap on the wrist, so to speak. That's your warning. That's wisdom warning you, like, hey, this is your reproof. Now you're supposed to turn from whatever you're doing. And wisdom says she'll pour out her spirit unto you. She'll make known her words unto you. But if you don't, then she says she'll laugh at your calamity. She'll mock when your fear cometh. The very thing that you're afraid of that's going to happen, when it happens, she's not going to be there to help get you out. So we need to take heed to that. Verses 29 through 33, my next reader, please.
For that they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of Yahweh. They would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. For the turning way of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them.
Okay, so here it is. Wisdom is still talking about those who would not listen. Those who are trying to seek her early now that they're in trouble. But she's not going to be found by them. And she's just explaining why she's doing that. She's not just being mean. She says, for they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of Yahweh. See, whenever you hate knowledge and don't choose to fear Yahweh, then you can't expect knowledge and wisdom to come to your aid when you get in trouble, because they work with Yahweh. So it says they hated knowledge and they did not choose to fear Yahweh, which we also know is the beginning of wisdom. So as a result, they found themselves in this situation or circumstance. She goes on to say, they would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. I tried to tell them, I even slapped them on the wrist a few times to give them a hint, but they wouldn't listen. Verse 31 says, therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way. What you reap, what you sow, you will reap. And be filled with their own devices, for the turning away of the simple shall slay them. And the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. Saying if you want to be simple, if you want to be fat and proud, then the simple shall destroy you. The fat and the proud shall come up against you. The word turning away here is meshuvah, number 4878, meaning apostasy or backsliding. So actually what it's speaking of is those who done strayed from the path, from the straight and narrow, those who have backslided. The backsliding of the simple shall slay them. See, and this is the problem, when you allow yourself to become roomy, as it says, the simple they're too roomy. They don't have enough restraints. When you stray away from the teachings and instructions of Elohim, you backslide, you become apostate. This is what gets you in trouble. And this is what will bring about your demise. This is what wisdom is saying. And the prosperity of fools, those who are fat, the spoiled, who have everything, that life has to offer, that very thing, that prosperity, shall destroy them. The very thing that they trust in. And the word prosperity is shalva, number 7962, and it means security. Showing that, the fools, that's what they trust in. They trust in their riches. That's where they think their security lies. Well, if I get caught, I'm going to get the best attorney money can buy. But sometimes the best attorney money can buy can't get you out of it. You need the best attorney that money can't buy, and that's Yahshua. I'm sorry, he's not an attorney, he's a lawyer. There is a difference. But that's who you need. And there's no amount of money that can buy him. So that's something to take to heart. Verse 33 says, but whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. You know, and this word fear is pakad, number 6243, and it means to be startled from sudden alarm. So what it's saying is saying it's not so much that you'll be safe from evil in and of itself, but you'll be safe from the fear of evil. You'll be safe from the sudden alarm. See, because wisdom will always warn you. You'll always know ahead of time what's coming down the line. You know, so you won't be caught off guard, so to speak. You know, so you have time to prepare, you know, to do damage control before it happens. So wisdom teaches that those who are attentive to her calling and the stretching out of her hands towards one will find themselves safe from sudden alarms. You know, how many of you know that it's a terrible thing to get caught off guard with a bunch of mess? You know, it just throws you in all types of disarray. Then you got to try to figure out, what am I going to do about it? You know, and if you hadn't been listening to wisdom, she's not going to be there for you. You know, so you're going to be kind of on your own, and that's never a good thing. You know, so we want wisdom to be with us, so we need to learn the lessons that she's trying to teach us when she's crying out to us, when she's reaching her hand out, you know, into our lives to show us. Well, that's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing.